Loki is far more important to the ending of One Piece than readers realize. In fact, One Piece cannot conclude without Loki playing his role. There is a trio of destined sovereigns in this story: the Mermaid Princess of Fishman Island, Shirahoshi, the Shogun of Wano, Momonosuke, and the Warrior Prince of Elbaf, Loki. Together, these three make up a fated trinity that all together complete the puzzle of how One Piece will end. Today, we're going to be breaking down the connection between these three ancient kingdoms and the core character that represents each land, as well as the connection between the two legendary ships, Pluton of Wano and Noah of Fishman Island, and the shipwrights, the Galila of Elbaf. And finally, how Loki completes both Shirahoshi's storyline and Luffy's storyline in the final war. And if that all sounds like a lot, it's because it is, because Loki is Oda's most important final addition to the narrative in the final saga, the last major character of One Piece that he's been saving for the end game. So to fully understand Loki's huge upcoming role in the final war, strap in. But first, if you feel like the world is getting a lot more expensive these days, that's because it is. If you've been looking for more ways to save money, then you will definitely be interested in Rocket Money. Rocket Money gives me a single, clear view of my finances. Suddenly, I could actually see everything in one place, instead of bouncing between apps and guessing. And one thing in particular that really helped me was subscription tracking. See, I am absolutely someone who signs up for things, forgets about them, and then keeps paying for things that I don't actually use. Rocket Money puts all of that on one list and makes it way easier to stay on top of what I'm actually using and should be paying for. I've also been using their spending insights, which honestly just makes you more aware. Seeing categories broken down helped me spot areas where I could tighten things up without feeling restrictive or unrealistic. So if you want to get a better handle on your finances, go to rocketmoney.com/morge to try it out for free. You can also scan the QR code on screen or click the link in my description, and you can unlock even more features with a free premium trial when you sign up with my link. So that aside, Loki is actually the third character that completes a necessary trio of sovereigns who we've been meeting throughout the New World. There are three ancient civilizations that have been established as being far more important than any others in the One Piece world today: Fishman Island, Wano, and Elbaf. These three nations are by far the most essential to the lore of One Piece and are disproportionately significant to the story of the Void Century compared to all others. Fishman Island, of course, houses the ancient Ark Noah, the ancient weapon Poseidon, and likely holds the secret of the Sea Kings. And Joy Boy's messaging suggests that the story of this island is very important in the grand scheme of the world. Wano is the island that houses Pluton, and even more importantly, it supposedly houses some key to the One Piece itself. Opening the borders of Wano country is essential to bringing the dawn of the world for some reason, and even the resurrection of Joy Boy and his return to this land is also pivotal to the fate of the world. And even beyond that, the Kazuki clan seems to have some ability tied to controlling Zunisha that is also crucial to the coming war. And finally, we have Elbaf. While we are still uncovering all the secrets of Elbaf, we know this land holds the secrets to the roles of the ancient giants in the Void Century War, the secrets to Galila Company, which are apparently necessary to bringing the dawn of the world. We know this is also the land that possesses the fruit that can bring the end of the world, the land that holds all of the lore secrets of Nika, and the secrets of the three worlds in general, going back literally thousands of years before recorded history. And finally, the warriors of Elbaf are the single most important military force in the coming war. That's also why all of post-time skip was narratively structured around these three nations, with Fishman Island being our starting point, then the journey to Wano taking up the next several hundred chapters, and finally we conclude with reaching Elbaf, the Island of War, which seems to be the thematic endpoint for the Straw Hats' travels, before the final war itself begins. This is also why we begin post-time skip with Fishman Island's Eve Tree and end with Elbaf's Adam Tree. Notably, throughout even pre-timeskip as well, Oda clearly pre-framed these three upcoming islands as being special to the story, as aside from Laugh Tale itself, Fishman Island, Wano, and Elbaf are the only three New World islands that Oda told us about in advance during the pre-timeskip. So now looking at this trifecta of ancient kingdoms, the Fishmen of Fishman Island, the Samurai of Wano, and the Giants of Elbaf, as being essentially the Triforce of the One Piece world, with the narrative of both the Void Century War and the coming Final War having been built around them. Throughout post-timeskip, we can see that Oda has centered each of these arcs around the young sovereign of each island. Shirahoshi, the Mermaid Princess, Momonosuke, the Prince of Wano, and now finally Loki, the Prince of Elbaf. And just as Shirahoshi as Poseidon is set to have a unique, world-changing role in the final war, and Momonosuke as the leader of Wano is set to do the same, Loki, as the last ancient giant and the Prince of Elbaf, will be just as important, if not even more so, than his two counterparts. But how exactly? So keeping in mind that Fishman Island and Wano are the two other pieces of the puzzle alongside Elbaf, consider this. Momonosuke and Shirahoshi both parallel each other in that they both have the unique ability to control something that no one else can control. Momonosuke can control Zunisha, and Shirahoshi can control the Sea Kings. Now, controlling the Sea Kings is obviously more significant than controlling Zunisha, as there are countless thousands of Sea Kings in the story. Controlling them is one of the most powerful abilities in One Piece, fittingly making Shirahoshi an ancient weapon. But on the flip side, we have the other parallel of ships. Wano and Fishman Island each house a legendary ship. Wano has Pluton and Fishman Island has Noah. And in this case, it is Pluton that is the ancient weapon, a weapon of war. Whereas Noah seems like it may actually be a ship of peace. As I speculate in this video, it is very likely meant to travel around the world, carrying people off islands as the water levels continue to rise in the final war. So with both Momonosuke and Shirahoshi, we have the ability to control a legendary power no one else can control, and we have the possession of an ancient legendary ship that is crucial to the final war. Now let's see how Loki fits into this. See, in Loki and Elbaf's case, they don't yet have their own ship. Rather, Elbaf is the key to the means of creating legendary ships. The shipwrights of Galila all originate from Elbaf, and they are all ancient giants, Loki's race. And it's established that the shipwrights of Galila are also another crucial key to winning the war for the world. Maybe it's just for the military power of a legion of ancient giants, but it seems even more likely that they have the capability to build ships that are crucial to the final war. That brings things full circle to the mysterious statement that the Sea Kings made about Noah, that now that the ship has been damaged, it can only be fixed by a certain clan. There is only one clan of legendary shipwrights that we know of, and that is the Galila Giants. And the key point that was established is that not only will they be necessary to fix Noah, not only will they be necessary for victory in the final war, but that only Harold would be able to control them. And now that Harold is gone, it very obviously falls on his son, the last ancient giant and the rightful king of Elbaf, as the one who can lead the ancient giant shipwrights in his father's stead. It is much the same way that it became Momonosuke's responsibility to lead the Scabbards and the samurai of Wano after his father died. And let's not forget the significance of Elbaf when it comes to shipbuilding in general. The kingdom literally resides on the Adam Tree, the holy grail of shipbuilding, the very tree that Frankie himself built the Thousand Sunny out of. Whereas Fishman Island and Wano both held legendary ships that would be crucial to the final war, the story of Elbaf and the recovery of its legendary shipwrights, the Galila, under Loki, suggests the creation of a final ship, or even ships, in the final war, as well as the means to fix the other ancient ship, Noah. And finally, just as Momonosuke was able to command Zunisha, who no one else was able to command, just as Shirahoshi was able to command the Sea Kings, who no one else was able to command, now too we see that Loki is able to command Ragnir, who no one else has been able to command. And that is fascinating, because Ragnir is actually sentient. Much like Zunisha and the Sea Kings were long thought to be just creatures without intelligence before Momonosuke and Shirahoshi were able to communicate with them, Ragnir was just an inanimate hammer, until it awakened and communicated with Loki, revealing itself to have a mind. And much like Zunisha and Momonosuke, or the Sea Kings and Shirahoshi, Ragnir seems to only allow Loki to control him. But here's where it gets really interesting. Loki's huge role in the finale of One Piece becomes even more clear when we fit the Galila and Noah connection together with the Loki and Shirahoshi connection. Because who is it that Loki has been speaking to on the Denden Mushi this whole time? The overwhelming likelihood is that all along, the mysterious Mosa is Shirahoshi. In Japanese, what Loki is really calling the person on the other end of the Denden Mushi is Shaggy. And Oda has had this running gag of characters referring to Shirahoshi as Shaggy. It would make by far the most sense for the mysterious Mosa to be Shirahoshi, as from the get-go it was made clear that the King of the Giants and the King of the Fishmen were close friends. Having a direct line from one kingdom to another makes a lot of sense, and it's likely that Loki was able to get his hands on this Denden Mushi before his imprisonment. On top of this, Loki and Shirahoshi have parallel stories of isolation. Loki has been imprisoned and isolated for the past 6 years. while Shirahoshi has also similarly been isolated in a room for many years for her own protection. The isolated Prince of Elbaf and the isolated Princess of Fishman Island, both cut off from all other contact, finding companionship through speaking to each other across the ocean, seems perfectly fitting, especially considering their clear contrast as characters. Loki is this bold force that wants to destroy the world, whereas Shirahoshi is this meek character who is terrified of the world. Loki's character arc is likely about learning to temper himself to some degree, whereas Shirahoshi's character arc was about learning to become braver. And finally, even the events happening to Mosa at the moment line up with what we know of what's likely happening to Shirahoshi. The Blackbeard pirates just recently found out that Shirahoshi is the ancient weapon Poseidon, and last we saw, the Blackbeard pirates were even positioned at the red line right above Fishman Island, ready to execute some sort of mission. And what you know, Mosa tells Loki that she just experienced some major frightening attack. This would make a lot of sense if Fishman Island just experienced an attack from the Blackbeard pirates. Now how does this tie into the overarching plot of One Piece? Well, Shirahoshi's biggest role is in controlling the Sea Kings in the finale, and a lot of signs point to the Sea Kings having to pull Noah at some point. But the problem is, the Noah is damaged, and it needs to be fixed. It can only be fixed by some specific clan of shipwrights, and so here, of course, everything ties together. Loki is the one who can find and command that clan of shipwrights, the Galila. Oda wrote the personal connection between Loki and Shirahoshi right from the beginning, because the Prince of Elbaf and the Princess of Fishman Island's narratives were always meant to connect. Shirahoshi cannot play her role and have the Sea Kings pull the great arc Noah until Loki plays his role and leads the Giants of Galila to fix Noah first. And it's possible there may even be a brewing romance between the two that Oda wants to include, as we all know that Loki has a thing for pink-haired women. And Shirahoshi is also one of the only female characters in One Piece big enough to be a potential love interest for him, with the reverse also being true for Shirahoshi. Now obviously Loki is still much bigger than Shirahoshi, but if anything that seems to match the size differences that Oda typically likes to depict, with men being several times bigger than the women. However, while Loki's role ties together with Momonosuke and Shirahoshi in many ways, there is one fundamental difference. But before we get into it, it's time to lose your shit, because we are doing a huge holiday sale where you can buy 2 posters and get 4 free. That's right, buy 2, get any 4 free. And we mean any 4 because for this December only, we are bringing back all our poster collections. All the island posters, all the ships posters, and of course all our boss posters. And we even have new posters for these collections. Maxim, the Sea Train, Ace's Ship Striker, Garling, Shamrock, and for December only, we have the Skypiea version of Going Merry and Dami Reversi Rocks. Just mix and match any posters you like from across all collections, and the huge discount will be automatically applied at checkout. After this December, the whole deal goes away, along with the Going Merry and Rocks. Lastly, congratulations to Just.MeJ3Z for winning an entire collection for free as part of our One Dream Studio Instagram giveaway. You can follow our Instagram page to automatically be entered into future giveaways. Despite Loki's similarities to Momonosuke and Shirahoshi, the one fundamental difference that separates him from the other sovereigns is that Loki is a warrior. Momonosuke's role seems to be ultimately as a leader, Shirahoshi's role is as the guide for the Sea Kings, but Loki was born to fight. He can't control the Sea Kings, he can't control Zunisha, his land doesn't have an ancient weapon, but it doesn't matter, because Loki himself is the ultimate power of Elbaf. With Loki, we're getting a very, very late game inclusion to the story of a true Yonko caliber fighter on the good guy's side. And interestingly, if we look at the mural, while we can clearly see giants involved in the final battle, the most prominent figure in the alliance against the devil, besides Nika himself, is this enormous ancient giant figure. And this is extremely important, as the ancient giants clearly have a unique significance in the story that Oda has continued to hide. We still have this hanging mystery of the giant skull of Onigashima at Wano. Who did it once belong to in the ancient past? Who once wielded the great sword that we see at Elbaf? The ancient giants in general are a huge missing piece of the One Piece lore, clearly a pivotal force in the Void Century War, and despite the ancient giant race having slowly died out over the years, all things have been leading up to the final ancient giant, Loki. the last and most important of his kind, a being who, from birth, was gifted with strength beyond any character in One Piece history, blessed with might far surpassing even the standards of his race, the fitting, destined final warrior of a long lineage going all the way back to the Second World. Loki has in fact been built up to be so strong that Oda has actually had to severely nerf him before the events of the Elbaf arc begin, with Loki supposedly not being able to reach back to full health for a long time to come. What's interesting is that throughout the story, Oda has never really maintained a true friendly rival counterpart for Luffy. Anytime Oda has strayed into that territory, he has ultimately removed said character from the story. As we saw with Wiper, Luffy's equal in willpower and tenacity was ultimately kept in the sky so as not to compete with Luffy in the rest of the narrative. Or Ace, Luffy's big brother who also had the potential to become Pirate King, had to be killed off to prevent a true equal for Luffy in the narrative. Oda has generally been more content to keep characters like Kid or Law around who, while technically Luffy's rivals, are never really close to him in strength. Except now we finally have Loki, a true match for our hero. Right down to personality, we can see the similarities in how Loki treats Luffy much like how Luffy treats everyone else. And just as Luffy seems destined to be Nika, so too does Loki carry a destiny that suggests that he could bring the world to an end himself. I believe the mural gives us an insight into the potential finale of the war, with Loki as one of the most important fighters in the Alliance alongside Luffy. So ultimately, considering Loki's role as one of the three pivotal sovereigns of the trifecta of ancient kingdoms, his ability to lead Galila to build and rebuild legendary ships for the final war, his destiny as the one chosen by Ragnir, his upcoming plot that ties him together with Shirahoshi to bring Elbaf and Fishman Island together, and finally his role as Luffy's one true warrior counterpart in the final war, Loki is turning out to be one of the most important characters in One Piece history, and certainly Oda's most important final character reveal in the entire story. So let me know below what you think Loki's role will be in the final war, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. And if you want to hear who I believe Loki will fight in the final war, then you can listen to my weekly podcast that just dropped by becoming a member or by supporting me on Patreon. Link in the description below.